Lately, reading some books especially related to relationships, and listening to essentially scientists, research analysts or experts, and even economics or health, so on. Here's where I started kind of understanding how fooled or how easily manipulated I can be, thereby probably a lot of people are, by some of the numbers that so-called experts project or show, saying, hey, this is the average, da da da. So, for example, let's go into the big one that really, last 2, 3 years, I guess, I started understanding. I guess I inherently started knowing, which I'll get into that, on the reality versus sometimes relying on the numbers. Many times I believe we ourselves know the reality, but we don't trust ourselves enough to trust that reality, like what actually we're seeing or observing or feeling. Oh, and it's hard sometimes because you don't know, right? It just might be just your own programming that's kind of projecting whatever you're seeing and feeling. So there is a tricky part there to figure out like what is actually I'm seeing in the sense that everybody else is seeing and feeling versus my own special observation. And if that special observation is true or not, we don't know. So anyway, that's a separate topic, I'll get into that. But anyway, the one of the things with health is one of the things I completely believed and trusted was the pre-modern age, the average age of, person living. It was said something like 45 years, right? 40 something years before the modern medicine, all that stuff. And what do you think about that, right? Normally, when you look at that, oh, yeah, modern medicine has kind of extended the life of human beings, which is, I totally believe it, right? It makes sense because many things that probably people pass out or expire or die, now medicine can solve it, right? At least that's what we see or we think we see. But here's the tricky part about numbers and the stats and the averages. There lies in stats and averages, right? Somebody said that. I forgot who that said. There lies, their stats and then there lies, right? So what I started understanding based on several scientific studies done is it's all false in the sense that no, the average age of human being, especially since the dawn of the agriculture age, uh, is not really gone up. What has gone up is the fertility or child death rate or infants, I guess, dying when they were born or before, essentially childbirth rates or early deaths because lack of proper care, germ, all that stuff. So the numbers are huge pre-modern ages when 7 out of 10 or something like that kids died or very early age, up to 20. There's even something else I heard, up to 20 years old, people died quickly. But once they got beyond 20 plus, people lived up to 90 easily. So they were very healthy, as long as they survived the childhood, seems like childhood or birth, whatever the case is, because if you go into the medicine, one of the big changes in the infant survival rate was, or when they were born, was the whole thing about germs. When they were being born, how the doctors now understood, like, hey, you got to be clean, sterile environment so that kids can survive. So in that sense, the study says now, actual real in-depth work says now, actual age of human being when they are past the infantile age has actually been reduced because you go by the numbers, average numbers, because the infants surviving the birth and all that stuff has gone up dramatically because of the medicine advance and um, caring of kids, all that stuff. Now the averages suddenly show, oh, average age is now 75, versus really because of the introduction of drugs and all that, really, the quality of life has gone down. And that's, basically the trick in trusting these experts that I now realize, like, oh, wow, I got fooled by that easily because I thought what I was seeing, yeah, medicine makes sense, more advances in medicine, cures cancer, so on and so forth. But one of the factors is it's actually introducing more stuff because more artificial stuff we introduce into our bodies, the less healthy we become overall. More crappy food you eat, more your body can't repair itself. There's a lot of science now proving that your body is amazing, way better than any medicine, body, mind. You can cure yourself of most things. Well, not a broken leg, perhaps, but there are instances of like gurus, yogis curing themselves of even broken legs in minutes and hours. But anyway, that's a separate story. But normal people, if you eat the right food, do the fasting right, eat the realistic organic food available, it's now clear cut that you are going to be very healthy or way better health than people who consume those drugs and look for the quick fixes with the drugs and modern medicine versus playing the long game. So that's kind of like went on that journey, health journey since 6, 7 years. I kind of figured that out, but many times, I mean, I doubted myself, obviously, and then more and more, uh, I saw myself changing and looking at other people who had results that seemed very legitimate. I followed them to experiment it. It's all an experimentation. So that now is where I realized, wow, I believed in this lie, or I didn't trust myself. I'm pretty sure most people know how to be healthy, but I feel like most of us don't trust ourselves because we hear these noises from the media, medical experts, health experts, so on, and then we fall into the trap. Similarly, you can see like, hey, one day coffee is good, it's bad. One day alcohol is good, now it's bad, so on and so forth. But if you go by the rule that everything that's natural is good for human, natural that's really edible is good for human versus anything that artificially produced, like whatever processed, alcohol is essentially processed, right? Alcohol doesn't occur naturally. You have to ferment it, do on so forth, uh, before you get it. Unlike maybe there's some kind of alcohol where you can come from tree sap. I know that back in India, there's this palm trees or something, right? Even in here, maybe it might be possible. I don't know. Anyway, versus you ferment it and do artificial processing, that alcohol might not be good for you. Or, food, same thing. Hey, you're eating natural food versus coffee. If you're drinking organic, clean coffee, grounded coffee, it's fine. But then you mix all these chemicals and all, it might not be fine. So on and so forth. So that's where, when I see this test, that's that's the problem. I don't know what to trust, and do I trust myself or not? And now I've realized, like, same thing in politics, right? 2024 elections. It was like, who do you believe? All these projections. That's not essentially turned out to be false. And then COVID time. I mean, for me, I was very strong in what I felt was the right thing. And many people essentially kind of, check me off as, oh yeah, he's extreme. He's out there guy, which I don't care. But now everybody, I know that who has told me that, right? Now they're coming back like, oh, maybe you were right. And and it's not their fault, right? They believed, trusted the people that they thought they were the scientists and all these people, that's what reality was. Hey, trust the science, right? That's one way. Heck, and then you go, I've read enough about relationship, and we have these notions about how men, women, or same sex, whatever, these notions that seem like reality based on the modern test or modern studies. But then when you go to the past before even modern age, and then you study different cultures, reality says otherwise. What the norm we think is, it's not. And that again slapped me in the face, like, oh, okay, maybe I need to rethink that too. Same thing with the whole economics. Right? Many times I'm not an economic expert, but now I come to now look everything skeptical, unless it's really clear cut. Right? Actually, today it's happening. Then okay, I believe that. I don't know, recent hoopla about tariffs and all that stuff. Right? All the experts saying, or one side of the experts saying it's all going to be bad, other side saying all good. But the reality probably was in the middle. It's not all great, it's not all good or bad, right? Something in the middle. So it wasn't as bad as the people projected, and it wasn't. I don't think it's as good as people projected too. So, and that's where you got. I feel like we miss trusting ourselves many times in what we see. Not saying that 100% all you can't question what we see, because yeah, question, but also trust but verify kind of deal. So anyway, the bottom line is, I feel like many times I've fallen in trap with, regardless of how much I think I shouldn't fall, I fall in the trap of those numbers and projections and saying, the expert saying something, uh, and then realizing, oh, that's not true, based on the other studies, the actual real studies. Because one of the things I'm now starting to realize is verifying who is doing the research or who is projecting that. What's their background and what's their like benefit. Based on that, then you can trust it probably. If they're neutral, they don't have anything to gain, then perhaps it's true. Might still not be true, but at least they don't have an agenda there. And that's kind of in this world, especially with so much media noise, social media noise, sometimes you can't just see the numbers or something like that and just figure out that it's reality. Sometimes you might have to go trust yourself, verify, study, do the alternate study, go deep dive and figure it out yourself. Anyway, that's one of my thoughts. One of the things I felt like I'm getting trapped into many times. And I'm hoping somebody else gains from that, like starts checking their reality or what they feel, what they see. I hope that helps.